to other open space areas. It was with the help of many people that the Pasquarelli property was conserved by the Connecticut Audubon. It's over 150 acres. It abuts the Bassett Hill property. And it's just a very, very large corridor for wildlife and other natural resources. At this time, I'd like to ask Neil Gilpin, our chair of the Land Acquisition and Stewardship Committee, and Scott Heth, the executive director of the Sharon Audubon, to come up and just say a few words about the protected lands that we have in Hartland. Well, I just wanted to be... You're the guest. I just think it's a wonderful thing that we've been able to protect this land in such a short time, and I just thought you might like to say a couple of things about it.
Sure, I'd love to say a few words about, particularly about the Pasquarello property that is now protected by Audubon, Connecticut. And it really was a partnership in terms of you know, talking about the importance of that property for protection. A lot of organizations were involved, and we're thrilled to be that Hartland Land Trust has a property next door. We're always thrilled to work with the Land Trust. We've done a lot of work together. My office is in Sharon, Connecticut, so it's a little less than an hour from here, so it's hard for me to get up here on a regular basis, and it's great to know that there's an organization like the Hartland Land Trust that really does look after these properties and helps us manage them. So we're looking forward to working with the Land Trust on the Pasquarello property and learning more about the other parcel as well.
Thank you.
Gee, I think they pretty much said everything that's to be said. The grand part about this is that it is multiple organizations that have come together to preserve these pieces. And we all work together for the common good of land protection. And it's good to see you all here, and we hope you all will become members, if you're not, of the Hartland Land Trust to help us in our endeavors to protect further parcels. I hope you enjoy it. You're in for a great presentation tonight. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks, Scott. I would just like to say thank you to Neil and Scott, and just let you know how much of a bird whisperer Scott is. He knows everything about birds, and he helped me last year, not quite rescue a bird, but I thought I had to rescue a bird, and he walked me through it. It was just a bird that fell out of a nest, and the parents were probably very close by. And he said, just wait till the next day and it'll be gone. And it was. So it was very, very comforting. And he did it all electronically. So, yeah, I know. But it was, I would have to say that he knows quite a bit about birds. So he's here with Michael, who volunteers with the Sharon Audubon. And they're going to present our event on the live birds of prey. And I think Scott will show you a little bit of his magic.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Can you all hear me if I don't use the mic? Yeah, it's easier when I'm holding on to a bird not to have something else in my hand. It's easier to deal with it that way. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I always love coming to do programs here in Hartland, and particularly for Hartland Land Trust. I've been working for Audubon for 30 years. It's gone by really fast. It's a lot of fun. I get to meet a lot of people. I get to walk in the woods, not as much as I used to, but because I'm in the office now, but these types of things I really love to do a lot. Michael Hopkins came with me tonight. We have lots of volunteers that work with our birds at the Audubon Center, and we have a special bird guest that I needed help with, so I brought Michael along, and hopefully that's going to work out good. We'll see. In that case, he'll be the bird whisperer, and all the responsibilities will be away from me. At Audubon Sharon, we've got 2,700 acres that we manage there in Sharon. one of the things we do is we take care of injured and orphaned wildlife with the wildlife rehabilitation facility. So we take in about 300 birds a year, either orphaned or injured or both, and try to rehabilitate them and release them back into the wild again. A lot of times we're successful, sometimes we're not, depends on the injuries. We do primarily birds, although we'll take in any animal pretty much and we'll refer them to wildlife rehabilitators that have the right licenses to take care of the animals that come in. For example, today we had 6 different people brought 6 different injured birds into the Audubon Center. So it's very, very busy right now. In some instances, the birds can't be released. And those instances are, you know, if they can't fly, if they won't survive in the wild when I release them. So sometimes it's a wing injury, sometimes it's an eye injury. Sometimes, believe it or not, it's a mental injury where they just don't know what it's like to be a bird anymore. And that's kind of the saddest of all injuries, because usually what happens is that it involves people who take young birds out of the nest thinking that it would be great to have them as a pet. And they work with them for a while, have them inside their house, play with the dog, play with the kids, and they lose their natural instincts. It's called imprinting, and I've got a couple birds that I brought that are pretty much physically okay, but they just don't know what it's like to be a bird. And we're afraid that when we release them, if they're on the ground and a coyote or something comes up to them, that they won't know to get out of the way. They don't know what a predator is. They think everything and everybody is friendly. So these birds are non-releasable. If the bird could be released, I wouldn't bring it here because I don't want the birds to become used to people, as I just said. So the birds that are going to be released, we have in a secluded area at the Audubon Center. There's only a few people like Michael who are allowed to go back there and work with the birds because they've all been trained to work with them so that they don't get imprinted and so that the care is the best that they could be. So tonight I brought 5 different birds. One is a raven that we had requested. And the raven is the one that Michael's going to work with because he's trained, he's been working with the raven at the Audubon Center for some time. And because they're so smart, they present their own set of challenges when it comes to training. And I guess what I'll do is I'll just get right down to it. Well, a couple things. I did a program, 2 programs down in Stratford this morning, and for kids. So usually when I do programs for kids, I go through, make sure people know what makes a bird a bird. And I usually go through that with adults too, just really quickly, just so we can refresh our memories, right? So what's the most important thing that makes a bird that no other group of organisms have? Feathers. Feathers, right? Birds have wings, right? Can all birds fly? No. Some of the big land birds like ostriches can't fly, but most birds do fly. So what makes them, what are some of the things besides feathers that makes them light so that they can fly? Hollow bones, good. Yeah, so if you break open a chicken bone, obviously it's going to be hollow. Our bones are not, they're solid, so even if we had feathers all over our body and pasted on a couple wings, we're not going to be able to get off the ground. And what else makes there's another particular thing that makes the bird lighter. The idea has to do with a kind of like an organ that they don't have that we have. It's not really an organ, but it's like a stomach. They have a stomach, no bladder. They don't have bladders. Birds don't have bladders, so when they have to go, they have to go. And so when they go on your windshield, it doesn't mean that they hate you, like a lot of people think. It just means they have to go. If they go on, you know, on your patio or on your deck or something. They have no choice. And so I bring that up because that's probably going to happen here. I've got a landing pad right back here. And we're hoping that when I bring the birds out and I go onto the landing pad, that's going to happen right away and then we'll be all set. But it's likely that when I'm out here, it's going to happen and we've got all the proper tools necessary to clean up after ourselves. So, anyway, so let's start with, we'll start from small to big. I don't remember where I put it. Landing pad. One of my favorite, all-time favorite birds. Can you guess what we name him? Bob. Bob. Very original, right? Some people call him Bobbert, but I call him Bob for short. So does anybody know what it is? American kestrel. K-E-S-T-R-E-L. American kestrel. What kind of bird is it? Falcon. It's a falcon. So I like to, the way I categorize hawks, I look at hawks as one big group. And within that group, you have buteos, which are like, what? Red-tailed hawks, broad-winged hawks are the buteos. You have accipiters, which are, they stay by your bird feeder and they eat birds right off your bird feeder. Cooper's hawks, sharp-shinned hawks, those are the accipiters, right? And then you have falcons, which in this particular case, American kestrel, but of course you have the famous peregrine falcon, you have merlins, those types of birds, all of which can be found around here in Connecticut various different times of the year. So the peregrine falcon been clocked at 260 miles an hour in a dive. Unbelievable. 260 miles an hour. And the peregrine, basically they do that, they dive down, right? They see a bird that they want to catch to eat, and instead of just grabbing it like normal birds do with their talons, they want to show off. So they dive 260 miles an hour, they clench their talons together like a fist, and they ram into the bird, and the bird comes tumbling to the ground, and then the peregrine falcon just neatly circles around, catches it in the talon, and flies off with it. It's a show-off. It's a show-off bird. Very cool bird. The American kestrels have a claim to fame too because they can hover, kind of like a hummingbird. So they can hover over their preferred habitat, which is preferred habitat for a kestrel? What is it? Fields, right. Preferred habitat for kestrels, American kestrels, are fields. Farm fields, they don't like really corn, they like grass. They eat stuff that would normally be found there, like grasshoppers and rodents and little toads and things. They'll eat pretty much anything they can find down there. Those little talons here are kind of deceiving. They're needle-like, and he's not really strong, but he can catch some pretty big things. We feed him about 2 to 3 mice a day. Eats them up, no problem. So the preferred habitat, farm fields, but their nesting is in cavities in trees. So if you think about that combination, farm fields, we're losing our farm fields, right? Cavities in trees. A lot of people like to cut down dead trees because they don't look good or they're not safe. And so a lot of those cavity trees are disappearing. So as a result, the American kestrel now is on the endangered species list in Connecticut as threatened. It's not on the endangered species list at the federal level, but it is in Connecticut. So what Audubon and other organizations are doing is putting out nesting boxes for kestrels. I saw one out there that looks like maybe it's an owl box. But we put out kestrel boxes in the appropriate habitat. And we've had really good success. We have almost 100 boxes around the state, mostly northwest and north central, some northeast, and had really good luck. So right now we're in the process of actually banding the babies before they fledge. So it's working really well. So falcons have these strips on their eyes. Do you notice those strips? I can walk around a little bit. And anybody know what those are for? Little strips?
Sunscreen.
For what?
Like their own sunscreen.
Their own sunscreen. It's like if you're sports fans and you see the outfielders out there with that black paint on their face, they got it from the kestrel. But it helps avoid the reflection of the sun off their face into their eyes. So it's kind of like a sunscreen. The other really cool thing about falcons is that they have this, what's called a tomial tooth. It's a little hard to see. So when I walk around, I want you to look at two different things. There's a little notch on the upper mandible. Upper mandible is the top part of their beak. The upper mandible has a little notch. And also I want you to look in its nostril.
And when you look at its nostril, it looks like there's something stuck in there. Let's see. Some aren't really going to be able to see, but I don't want to take too much time. But suffice it to say that there's a little notch, little kind of triangle on the top part of its beak. And if you look, you can see, if you look at it from the direct on, you can see this little flares on its beak. And the nostril looks like there's something stuck in there. Take a quick run around here. So what do you think the notch is for? Very cool, very slick. Has to do with killing their prey. So the notch corresponds to the top vertebrae of the rodent. Snip very, very quickly. Very quickly. And it also helps them, grab grasshoppers and other things as well. And the little thing that's stuck in its nostril, it looks like there's like a piece of wood stuck in there, is actually a valve. And if you think, particularly in the case of peregrine falcon, how fast they fly. Have you ever ridden in the back of a pickup truck? And the air is going right into your nose and it's almost like really hard to breathe. They can shut their nose off. And so when they're flying really fast, they don't get choked out with the air rushing into their nasal cavity. So they can shut that right down and off they go. So it's very cool. And also the other really cool thing about this bird is on the back. I'll show it. You can see it when I get up front again. On the back, they have 3 dots. One of my favorite birds. I'll stop for everyone. Poor Fred here, so follow there. Well, look at the back. Those spots. See those spots? Look like 2 eyes and a nose. It's mimicry. It's like a butterfly. So if you look at the back of his head, most of everybody can see it back there. 3 spots, 2 eyes and a nose. So the predator comes around the back and says, uh-oh, he's going to see me. I'm going around the other side. The other side is his real eyes. And so it's just like butterflies with the mimicry on butterflies, where that's so that, a predator will bite the eyes and the nose of a butterfly, but it's really the tips of the wings. And so the butterfly will hopefully survive. All right. Any quick questions about Bob? And he's triangulated. Basically, I'm going to talk about this a little more when we bring the owls out, but their eyes are fixed in their heads, right? Birds' eyes are fixed in their heads. We can move our eyes around, so we can get depth perception by moving our eyes around, but they can't. So a lot of times you'll see birds kind of going up and down like this. They're just kind of getting a triangulation of what they're looking at. And sometimes I can move his body around, and his head will just stay still. And one of the kids at one of the programs I did says, "I know what that's called." I said, "Oh, I didn't know there was a name for it." He said, "Yeah, it's called the funky falcon." So I thought that was good. I use it in every program.
What's their life expectancy?
Life expectancy for a kestrel is, in the wild, is probably 8 to 10 years. In captivity, a lot longer. All the birds will live longer in captivity because obviously they're fed well. There's no predators, medical attention.
No stress.
We take good care. Yeah, low stress, right? Except when I come in, oh, there he is again. He's going to put me on his glove. And they stay in the area year round. Oh, now that's a good question. American kestrels are migratory. So in addition to having problems with habitat up here, their populations are declining nationwide now, even though they're not on any list. They do fly down to like Panama and Costa Rica. And they winter down in those areas. Florida as well, but they also go to Central America. And so, you know, we think that there's probably some issues with habitats in their wintering grounds as well, which may be causing them to their populations to decline, in addition to habitat issues here. Yes?
Does he get to fly?
He does. Yep, he does. This is one of the imprinted birds that I mentioned ahead of time. Person who brought this in brought it walking through our door with the bird on its shoulder like a parrot. We knew that was a bad thing. And so Bob is exhibiting some natural instincts, but really bonds with people, and so we're a little bit worried about letting him go. Did I answer? What was the question? I forgot what the question was.
Does he ever fly?
Oh, does he fly? Oh, yeah. So all the birds we have have indoor and outdoor aviaries. So they can fly around. They have different perching options. Most of them have, not Bob, but most of them. Where'd it go?
Your glove.
Oh, my glove. Usually goes on my shoe. Yeah. Most of them have other like species in with them. For example, we have 2 barred owls together and 2 red-tailed hawks together, and that sort of thing. So they have a pretty good life.
Would he take to another bird if it came in at Kestrel, or?
This is a male. Males tend to be very territorial, and so the answer. Sorry, Bob. We're not sure. I would say probably not for a falcon. And I want to get to the other birds, but interesting story. He is exhibiting some natural instincts, and one of those natural instincts is this time of year, it's breeding season. And you can see its cere, it's calmed down a little bit, but the cere is the top part where his nostrils are. It's really orange. That means it's in breeding mode. Its hormones are like raging. And so it'll squeak the usual breeding sound that kestrels squeak, like a chortling sound in its cage, and actually attract females, wild females, to the top of the cage. And the heartbreaking thing is that it'll try to feed one of its mice through the cage to the female. It's heartbreaking to see. But he's trying. So the next bird we're going to show you is another hawk. And it is a buteo, so you remember what our options are for buteos. Red tail. Around here, red tail, broad wing, red shouldered. And you can tell me which one it is once Michael gets them out there. Try that landing pad too, because red tails are notorious for shooting long distances. So it's likely to happen. Well, I gave it away, didn't I? It was a red tail. That's good. So, red-tailed hawks are very, very common. How many people have never seen a red-tailed hawk before? Yeah. Very, very common. And when I go to programs for kids, I always say, when you're driving in the car with your parents, and you're on an interstate or you're on the Merritt Parkway or something, look on the shoulders, look on branches that are overlooking the side of the road, and you will see them. Look for a big bird that has a pale breast, pretty variable. Sometimes they have more markings than Mandy here does, but you'll see them. They're very, very common. And you can see the contrast when Michael walks around and gets a little closer to you. You can see the contrast of those talons. Huge, huge talons. You can walk right up there. Michael. Walk down the aisle. We'll clean up after it. Just don't point the business end to anybody. Am I on tape? So red-tailed hawks, big talons, eat big things. Right, so whereas a kestrel, their favorite food is grasshoppers, red-tailed hawk's really not going to be bothered with a grasshopper. They're going to go for chipmunks, squirrels, rabbits, you know, some pretty big types of things. This is a female. It's a small female. The only reason we really know it's a female is because it laid eggs. If I didn't know it was a female, I would call that a male because I think it's small. It's one of the smallest females I've seen. Females are usually a lot bigger than the males for red-tailed hawks. Not for kestrels. And so now think about the difference in their nesting. And also when I bring out one of the owls there's no difference in size. So if you think about how a red-tailed hawk nests, where's Fred? Fred, where's a red-tailed hawk nest?
Old Forge Road.
Oh. I really didn't want to be that specific.
Pine tree?
Yeah, open pine tree, open nest, and Old Forge Road. Open nest, and the female sits on that nest and protects its young and its eggs, right? So the female is real stocky, big. The male is out running around finding food for everybody. So the male's got to be more svelte, more able to fly around, you know, more maneuverable, not as heavy. Now, if you think about a cavity nesting bird, like a kestrel, if one was bigger than the other, that's going to cause trouble, right? Because one maybe not be able to get in the hole. So something like a barred owl, which I'll show you, a barred owl is a cavity nester. And so if one of those barred owls was a lot bigger than the other, there may be some housing issues with being able to get in and out of their house. And this is kind of my theory, but I think it has some validity to it, why some birds show the sexual dimorphism in size, like the red-tailed, and some birds don't. All right.
That's good.
You want to show the red tail so everybody make sure you get the idea?
Famous red tail. Actually shown that up pretty good.
They're not migratory. So the red tail, they won't go that far. They won't go that far. I got everybody worried now. Red-tailed hawks are not migratory. They're here year-round. And so you can see those feathers go all the way down to its feet. If you saw the American kestrel, feathers don't go all the way down to their feet. And if you look really close when you walk around, you can see scales. And so, you know, obviously the theory is that birds evolved from reptiles. And so you can see remnants of the scales on their feet. Yes? Yeah?
This winter, I noticed like a huge increase in the amount of red-tailed hawks that I've never seen before. Has that been has that been officially noted?
I don't know whether it's been officially noted. 2 years ago, there was an extreme mast crop, a lot of acorns. And it's usually when there's a lot of acorns, then that means you're going to get a big rodent crop, which the next year. And then so it stands to reason that the year after, you're going to see a lot more red-tails. Now, the other thing that happened was we saw a lot of snowy owls down here along the coast mostly, but we saw other things that came down from the north. And there was a shortage of lemmings in the north. So a lot of birds that you would normally find food during the winter couldn't find it further up north, northern Maine into Canada. And so they came down here. I don't know whether that had to do with the red tails or not, but that was an issue as well. Okay. Let me back here. All right, so we had, these are all diurnal birds, right? The birds that are out during the day. We had American kestrel, was a falcon. We had a red-tailed hawk, which is a buteo, B-U-T-E-O, buteo. And now, no, we're going to do Mandy. So we were asked to bring a raven. And this raven does not always come out to programs, in fact, very rarely. And the issues we have with ravens is that they are so smart, and Michael's going to talk to you more about it, that they're their own independent bird. So we're going to see what happens here. And so, and they require so much stimulation. We've got toys and bells and mirrors in its cage and all kinds of stuff to try to stimulate it. And Michael works with Manitou and throws grapes at it and has her catch it in the air and stuff. We'll try that and see if that works. So it's all about stimulation But it's good to have people know the difference between a raven and a crow. And when you see the raven, you'll instantly know why. It's a big bird. Right? The mouth is open.
Did you teach it?
They're very animated. Very animated. So Ventura, can I start talking about?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, this is a common northern raven, of which there are 8 subspecies with little variation. And as you can see, that there's considerable difference in size between a raven and an ordinary crow. This is of the family, or the species, and he's making one of his noises. This is the species Corvus corvax, and he is about 21 inches long, probably about 2.5 pounds. Sometimes I swear he could be as big as 3 pounds. Want to throw that to him? Throw it. Nope. Bad throw. Bad throw. He will catch grapes. We've been teaching, of course, I've been working with him for about 2.5 years. Over here, Antu. Antu, look, right here, buddy. He's a little nervous right now. But you've got to put your foot right here. Right there. Okay, boy? That's what you got to do? Okay. And they make basically about 15 to 30 different types of sounds. So they can mimic people's voices. They make whistling noises. They go like that. Go through that. He does that. Watch, he'll do it like castanets. He does that. Go ahead. Did you do that? Sure you could. And then he does other whistling. See? See? There you go. Did you do that? He does that too. He'll whistle. But they have a lifespan in the wild of about 15 to 20 years. And they love bright, shiny objects, as you can see. He likes to do that. So they like a lot of stimulation. They're very intelligent birds. They do mate for life. Even though they're a bit quarrelsome, they are family-oriented. And they have no predators to speak of. The only predators that they have are larger hawks and things like that when they're fledglings. But as adults, they have no predators. Usually it's their eggs that other birds go after. They do like to make their nests in places like cliffs and rocks, and also some deep woods. So the size of their nest is kind of like a giant beach ball, but it's a mishmash of branches and twigs and so forth.
There was a nest. There was a nest in Sharon this year, right on a silo, on the landing for the elevator, right on the silo, right by the road. Yeah. It was very cool to see.
Yeah, and the one that on record that lived the longest in the wild, it was banded, was 23 years and 3 months. In captivity, they can go as long as 40 years. So I intend on being around as long as Manitou. Now, Manitou is an Algonquin word that we've given to him, which means spirit. And there's a lot of mythological lore that goes along with ravens, everything from the Bible to Scandinavian literature, and the Native Americans, of course, have a lot of beliefs associated with the ravens. He's mentioned in the Bible 12 times. When Noah released, actually it's the first bird named by species in the Bible. It was the first bird that Noah released from the ark. So when he released the bird, it was the first name of any creature. It was a raven. So, oops, yeah, we got something to clean up. So Like I say, they're highly intelligent. They cache food. Sometimes they'll take little berries and things like that, and they'll actually dig a little hole in the ground, and then they'll cover it up with their beak and bury it. They're one of the only birds that cache food, and they do things like that. Their diet consists, they're actually omnivorous. They pretty much are birds of carrion as opposed to birds of prey. They'll eat just about anything, so scavengers are probably more apropos for what they should be called, but it's not uncommon, by the way, for them to have nests near garbage. They do eat garbage, but they do like berries and grains and little rodents. Out in the west, when I was out in Yellowstone, they like to travel in groups and hunt with wolves. And the reason that they do that is because they know that the wolves will open up the carcass. And once the wolves are done with the carcass, there's lots of little scraps and remains for the ravens to eat. And sometimes it's, as the Native Americans used to say, that they hunt, the raven hunts with the wolf. They will actually manipulate wolves by calling them to various prey that could be hurt or something that is what they seem to think is vulnerable. And the wolves will follow the voices of the ravens and actually kill the animal, and so that they can eat. So they're very intelligent. And if you saw the PBS special on crows, it was a 1-hour special, you could see some of the different things that they're able to do. They actually have a mindset that engineers a solution. So if you dangle some little piece of food or something special from a long string, they can actually pull it up. He likes raspberries. Get a raspberry. I got raspberries. They love berries. They really do love berries.
Why does he hold his mouth open so much?
He's a little nervous. Doesn't know what to think about. And you'll see some of the other birds may look like they're panting. They don't sweat, like mammals do. And so they open their mouth and they pant a little bit to get air in. You also saw the American kestrel. I don't know if you saw it, but it sort of shook around and then puffed up. Yeah. And that was putting air. It puts air underneath its feathers to cool itself down. It also does that in the wintertime. It'll put air in the feathers. All birds will do that. Kind of fluff up, put the air under the feathers, and it acts as a layer of insulation.
Okay. Well, he's being pretty good, actually. Yeah, he's being pretty good bird. Okay.
All right. Any questions about?
Any questions on the Corvex?
How did you end up with them?
Pardon?
How did you end up with them?
He was actually brought to Sharon Audubon from someone in New Hampshire that had imprinted him. And we figure he's about somewhere around 8 years old, maybe a little bit older. And, he brought it to a nature center up there, and then we inherited him from there. And he's perfectly healthy to fly, but the problem is because he's so used to people, he could ruin a good picnic. He can fly down on your picnic table and just help himself to your food, and maybe your fingers too. And, because he has no inhibitions about being with people. So I have no doubts that he could probably survive to some degree with success out in the wild, but he could hurt people and probably endanger himself. The other thing, of course, is that he might not be, ravens are a little bit smarter about danger probably than some other birds, but and would sense that a predator would probably take off, but he might hurt people. So we didn't think that he was suitable enough to be released, but tremendous, a very smart bird. He does incredible things with me in the aviary. He plays catch with me with a parrot bell that I made. I can actually throw it to him, and then he catches it in his beak and he throws it back to me. And we have a little show that we put on for people, actually. And he's really a showman. He loves to entertain. He really does. Very animated and actually, in my opinion, very lovable. Right, Manitou? You a good baby.
When they call the wolves out west, do they mimic the sound of the wolves, or do the wolves know the raven call?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question completely.
When the ravens call the wolves, do they mimic the wolf call?
No, but the wolves recognize who they are, and they follow the voice trail, and they know that the ravens are onto something. So they do have a cooperative hunting relationship. It's very unusual, but it's been existing for a number of years. Yeah.
We were actually 4 of us in this room that were actually snowmobiling in Yellowstone, and the ravens truly wreaked havoc because of their brightness, their smartness, their capability. They would hop on the back of our snowmobiles and were able to lift our Velcro patch areas up, lift them up, get in there, grab backpacks, take them out, and truly unzip.
Yes, they're very smart.
Unzip backpacks.
Very, very smart.
And go in there. They were totally insane on how bright they were.
I built a swing in his mew at Sharon, Audubon, and he unscrewed a turnbuckle, and I came there one day and the swing was completely undone. It's chained and everything, and he was just swinging on the bottom of the thing. It was just hilarious. He's very smart.
There have been studies done where they were checking the intelligence of ravens, and they'll have a food, obviously a food prompt where they're trying to get at the food, and there'll be a series of basically an obstacle course that the raven would have to go through, not ever learning that before, and they would do it seamlessly every time, from the first time they did it to the, and even if they were, if the obstacle course was adapted, changed, they would figure out what that change was, and they get through the obstacle course. They're just incredibly, they're supposed arguably the smartest animal in the animal kingdom, and some scientists think they're smarter than chimpanzees with rote intelligence. What's that?
Oh no, they're native to Connecticut.
Oh yeah.
Actually, the Hartland, Barkhamsted area is one of the areas that they're most prevalent in the state. So they are native.
Listen for their call.
Yeah.
Instead of the crow sound, they do a quack. They do a real quack kind of sound. Listen for that, especially if you're near rocky cliffs or, I guess, silos now. But,
I just gave a view. It's a nice little help. I just wanted to say one thing real quick. When I heard about your
life of biologist,
about your land donation, I just wanted to say that that especially touches my heart. This is our 50th year at Sharon Audubon. It's our golden anniversary, and I've actually been coming to Audubon since I was in grammar school. My very first field trip was when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, and I remember it was a rainy day. We couldn't go out on the trails, and they didn't have an aviary back then. And I remember dropping my sandwich and the bag got all wet, and it was not as a happy day as I wanted to, but when they put on some of their exhibits, it just thrilled me. And little did I realize that I'd be coming there many years later and working with these wonderful people at Sharon Audubon. So I think it's fantastic that you've donated land up in this area of the state to the Audubon Center. And so I'm a living testimony about the fact that it means something to kids. Because when kids grow up and become big kids, you never know what's going to happen. They might wind up training ravens.
All right, thanks, Michael.
How do you lose the eye?
Pardon?
It looks like the pea has one eye.
No, this one does not. This one has both eyes, but we didn't mention that the red-tailed hawk did have one eye. Mm-hmm. And I forgot to mention that. And the red-tailed hawk lost its eye, we think, during a dispute at the nest, protecting its nest, and it got poked. Maybe it was another red-tail, maybe it was a great horned owl or something. Seems like this is my job for today. Yeah, this is my job. That's good. Yeah, yeah. It's all birds of prey spit up pellets because they're eating bones, they're eating fur, everything, and some of it doesn't get digested. In things like ravens and hawks, they digest more than something like an owl does because they don't swallow their prey as whole. An owl swallows their prey whole. So everything is in their digestive system. So they do spit up pellets, and you can actually dissect the owl pellets. And you can put the skeleton back together of the animal that it ate. We do that with kids all the time, so you can identify specifically what the animal is, because all the bones, the skull, the claws, everything are there in that pellet. And so something like a red-tailed hawk or a raven, they pick and they chew, so they don't have all the stuff in there, so their pellets are not quite as developed or full of the bones like owls are. And speaking of owls, in my glove here. The last couple of birds to show you.
How much time? 47 minutes. Oh, poop. Here we go.
That's your turn. That one's getting pretty full. What? This is nothing this morning. When I did my 2 programs this morning, no problems. So, anybody know what it is? Saw-whet is a good guess, except the saw-whet won't have these feather tufts up on top of the head, which makes it a
screech owl.
Eastern screech owl. This is an eastern screech owl. This is full grown, and so a lot of people who have never seen a screech owl before have no idea it's that small. And he's actually stretching out now. They do that when they get a little nervous, and they'll camouflage themselves up in the red. This is a red phase. So especially if they're up against a red pine tree, they stretch out, they disappear. You'll never see them. And the gray phase, there's 2 different phases of screech owls, same species. The gray phase, same thing. If it's up against white ash or something, stretches out, disappears.
Is that different times of the year? Or
the phases? No, the phases can be different phases within the same clutch. So different colors, just like different color cats. But they're different color morphs or color phases of the same species. So obviously this is an owl. These things up here, how many people think they're ears? Okay, good. They're not ears. A lot of people do think they're ears. They look like cat ears, but they're just feather tufts. They make them look cool. And they help with the camouflage. And they blinks his eyes. His eyes are owl's eyes are just the coolest thing. And the other owl I'll show you really exemplifies it. But they can blink independently. We can kind of blink independently, but they do it automatically. They have 3 eyelids. They have a lower eyelid and a topper eyelid, and then they have what's called a nictating membrane, which is a clear membrane that comes down and helps protect their eye, but also helps lubricate their eye. And you can actually see it come down ahead of its eyelid. You'll see there's a clear membrane that comes down when it's blinking. and owls can also dilate their eyes separately. So if it's sunny on one side and shady on the other side, one eyeball is going to be big, one eyeball is going to be small. It's kind of cute, huh? And if you look as I walk around, it's almost looks like it has whiskers by its beak. You can barely see its beak. It's full of feathers. Remember that this is a nocturnal owl. And this is a small owl. And those feathers are feeler feathers. And so when they're flying around or if they're sitting on a branch at night and a moth comes next to it and they feel it with those feeler feathers, they snap at it. And so it's like an indication that there's something there that maybe I should eat. And so they're kind of like whiskers, but remember there's no hair on the birds. They're all feathers, so they're just little. Can you grab those little glasses in the? Am I running around with Fred?
What pair of glasses?
So, Can you help me a minute? Can you come up here a second? Let's come up front so everybody can see. All right, come on over here. Oh, you can come up too. Good. We'll share. Okay. So turn my way. Turn to me and come over here. I'll take these. And when I tell you, put these on. You put them on yourself. Take your hands and put them on. They're just glasses. Come on. You got another hand? Oh, here, I'll hold that. All right, now when I tell you, you're going to turn around, okay? Then you're going to do it next. Okay. So if we had the same size eyes, relative to our body size, as an owl does, they have huge, huge eyes, we would look like this. Turn around. Turn over this way. Turn to the left. Turn around. I know you can't see the thing, can you? Okay. You want to try them too? Okay. Can you take those off? You want me to hold those army men for you? Okay. Put those on. Oh, yeah, your ears are there. There we go. All right. Now turn around and show everybody. All right. Excellent. Here, look at. There's an owl there. You can come over, Fred, if you want a good shot here.
Yeah, here's a good shot here. We'll turn this way, and you can have the owl, two owls here together. Look this way. You want to come over too? Turn your this way.
Your brothers up.
Just look over here toward the camera. You got it. Here we go.
Beautiful. All right, thank you. Oh yeah, yeah. You can't see it there. Oh, and here's your arm grip.
Otherwise, we had to
There you go. Well, a round of applause. Okay, so you see that he's now panting. He's hot, a little nervous, a lot of people around. I can tell when they really get debilitated, but he is, getting a little nervous now. So they're very nocturnal, two color phases. What else can I tell you about a screech owl? They're here year-round. They're very common. People don't think so. They're very common. They don't really make a screech like you might think. A lot of people think they do a really raucous screech, like, Rah! They don't. There is an owl that does, a great horned owl. The fledgling great horned owl, that's their feeding call, is a loud, raucous screech. Everybody thinks it's a screech owl because they can't see it. But the fledgling owl that comes out, it's okay, buddy, that comes out and is asking its parents for food, makes a loud screech. And the parents eventually ignore him because it's time for the fledglings to be on their way. And this bird really does two vocalizations, but not really a screech. One is like a whinnying sound, which I can't do very well, but can anyone here do a screech owl? Can you do a screech owl? Okay. Some people do it really, really well, and I can't. And the other one is kind of like you're whistling and gargling at the same time. And I can't even try that. But it's like a trilling sound, but it's really not a screech, a loud screech at all. Okay? Any questions about? I'm going to put him back. He's getting a little. What's that?
The appetite, what do they eat?
Oh, what do they eat? Yeah, they eat mice, primarily mice. But like I said, if a moth comes and touches those feeler feathers, he'll snap at it and he'll eat moths. Nocturnal types of things, mostly small rodents.
Will they dive down fast?
Yeah, well, the thing about owls is they're silent flyers. You can't hear them. And like owls and red-tailed hawks, they're not very fast flyers. So their hunting strategy is basically just to sit on a branch, wait for something to come by. They have great hearing. I'm going to talk about the hearing when I bring out the other owl. So they can see at night really well, but they can also hear at night really well. So that combination makes them a lethal hunter. They can really find things very, very easily. But they're not fast, so they're the element of the surprise. Looking for the prey, sneaking up behind it, silent flyers, grabbing it. The mouse doesn't know what got him.
So when does it vocalize? More evening or at night or during the day?
Yeah, so screech owls are very nocturnal. The other owl I'll show you is what's called crepuscular. So it's out during the evening and early morning and also at night. These are very nocturnal, so most of the time you're going to hear them you know, right in the middle of the darkest part of the night.
So you wouldn't confuse it with a vireo then? That you can
No.
hear during the day.
No.
But it's similar sound.
Yeah. Similar, but distinct enough that you can't mistake them if you know what each one is. Yeah. A vireo, yeah, they're distinct, but that's actually good. They're similar. Right, buddy? Okay. Let's put you back. This bird got hit by a car, unfortunately, so it can't fly. It's got a bad wing. And also when it got hit by a car, if you look close, you can see that its upper and lower mandible aren't sort of in line anymore. It can still eat okay, but it can't sustain flight. So that's why we have him. And he's in with another owl in his cage. He's got a gray phase in the cage with him. And there, when I got them tonight, they were both sitting right next to each other, all snuggled up. So. All right. It's not unusual to see a barred owl out during the day, and it's really not unusual to hear them. They're calling right now. They have young. They're calling back and forth. You can hear them during the day. And they do a sound. Can anyone do a barred owl sound? You can? It's who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? So, and they do different parts of it. So they do the who cooks for you, or they do, sometimes they just do hoo-ah. You hear that? Yeah, you just do the hoo-ah, yeah. Or sometimes I'll just do they do all their different parts, and very rarely do they do it all together. Who cooks for you, who cooks for you all. Briefly, I just wanted to talk some more about the eyes, and you see the difference in color and eyes between this one and the screech owl. This has really dark chocolate eyes. Screech owl has the really beautiful yellow eyes. Really huge, and we think that they can, scientists think that they can only see in black and white, not in color, because when they've examined the eyes in necropsies and things, they found that they only have rod cells, and they have very few what are called cone cells. Any optometrists here? Okay, good. Rod cells, they have more rod cells than cone cells. The rod cells attract light, and the cone cells make it so that they can see color. And so they have really only rod cells. So when it's pitch black for us, they can see perfectly well. They see perfectly well. They have big eyes, they have all those rod cells, all that light. Even there is light when it's pitch black out, but we can't tell. They can. They can see perfectly well. Now the other thing is about their eyes, we already mentioned that they're fixed in their head. They can't move their eyes in their sockets. So, you know, obviously we can look peripherally off to our left and to our right and up and down without moving our head because we can move our eyes. And so because their eyes are in front of their head, binocular vision like ours, they have to move their whole head around in order to be able to see peripherally and up and down. So how many people think they can turn their head 3/4 of the way around? Okay, good. Not too many people, except Harold raised his hand. They can do 270 degrees, 3/4 of the way around, which is a lot. 3/4 of the way around, and they can do quickly one way and then quickly back the other way again, instantaneously, so it actually looks like they're going all the way around, like the Bugs Bunny cartoons and stuff. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. I was on to something. Okay, I'll remember it again. Yeah, I was talking about going around 270 degrees. Oh yes, thank you. I got it again. So we have 7 vertebrae in our neck, right? How many vertebrae do you think a giraffe has in their neck? 7. Yeah, 7. How many vertebrae do you think an owl has in their neck? 20. 14. 14. So it's very, very cool. A giraffe can't turn their head very far around either. They can move the whole thing around, but they can't turn their head around any more than we can. Owls can, because they have 14 vertebrae versus 7, which is pretty good. That's what I was thinking about. So how long do they live? 12 to 15 years in the wild. And they eat rodents. They'll try to catch bats, although they're not very successful because they're not very fast flyers. They'll eat some insects. They also have those little feeler feathers here, sorry. And what I wanted to talk to you about too, just before we put Sophia back in and we finish up, is that owls also have great hearing. As I mentioned before, they can catch something without ever seeing it. So just by hearing it rustling underneath the leaves, they can catch their food. And you may have seen some National Geographic type photos in the Arctic of snowy owl prints in the snow, with the wing prints in the snow. And they're hearing the mice and the rodents underneath the snow, and they're diving into the snow to catch it, just by hearing it. So it's very incredible. And so their ears are in their head. They're not ears, flabby things like we have. They're just holes in their head, and that's where the oral cavity is. And that one is higher than the other. So they're not straight across. And because one is higher than the other, they can triangulate their sound. So they can really pinpoint what their sound is. And if you look at the front of her face here, you can see that facial disc. It kind of looks like a satellite dish, right? And it acts a lot like a satellite dish, where those sound waves come hit that facial disc. Those little feathers can be manipulated so that those sound waves go into their ears. And the facial disc actually has a seam, so it actually moves. And some people can see this, and Sophia loves when I put my finger in her ear. But the facial disc, you can see that seam. Some people see, and kind of come down here. And they do not migrate. You can see the seam of that facial disc.
Oops.
I was thinking that too.
You saw a part of it, a fish. Very pretty. And they'll sit during the day and they'll be still and you'll never see it. You walk right by it, you never see it. Because of the camouflage, you'd never see it. And even if they fly over your head, if you're not looking, you wouldn't hear them. They have buffered leading edge of their feathers. And so those buffered leading edges cut through the air, and you can never hear it. If I had a red-tailed hawk feather in my hand, a flight feather, and I whipped it through the air, you'd hear it through the air. If I had a flight feather of a barred owl, and I whipped it through the air, you wouldn't hear it. It's profound. It's the way the leading edge of the feathers are made. The only way I can describe it is that they're buffered. They're sort of split a little bit, so that when they fly, they cut through the air and they're silent. So it's really quite amazing. All owls, not just the barred owl, but all owls, nocturnal birds, owls.
Is there much difference between the barred owl and the white owl?
The white owl is called snowy owl, and the snowy owl is quite a bit bigger. The only time we have snowy owls down here is when they migrate south in the wintertime to find food. And typically not this far inland, although this year in New Milford there was a snowy owl sitting on top of the New Milford High School. So it did come pretty far inland. They're bigger. Sometimes we'll get calls about snowy owls in the winter. They'll fly into a barn to find rodents if they come down this far because they're hungry. So they're looking for any food. They fly into a barn and they get mired down in manure because the rodents are hanging around the manure piles. So we have usually the lucky task of getting the snowy owls and demanuring them. Which leads me to another phenomenon, and then we'll wrap up. Great horned owls are probably a third bigger. They have those feather tufts, the same as a screech owl. They're very, very aggressive. They're very strong. They're called the tigers of the sky because they try to eat just about anything. And they'll eat skunks. Or they'll try to eat skunks. So whenever I smell skunk coming in through my front door at the Audubon Center, I know it's a great horned owl. They got skunked. They get skunked very, very often. Where you going? Turn around. They get very often. And people say, oh boy, how can they stand it? Birds don't have a very good sense of smell. And so the old wives' tale that if you find a baby bird on the ground don't touch it, don't pick it up, don't put it back in the nest because the parents will smell the scent of humans and kick it out of the nest. It's absolutely not true at all. Most birds do not have a sense of smell. We think the exception are vultures, who circle around up in the air and they're smelling that carrion, that dead stuff. Their motto was the deader the better. So if they can smell that dead stuff, then they're going to be happy. But most birds do not have a very developed sense of smell. They can't smell humans at all. The difference is rabbits and mammals, they can, so that becomes an issue. If you find a baby rabbit or something, the parents can smell the scent of humans on them. So, yeah, let's do a few questions.
What happened to her when they heard,
It seems like I have a theme tonight. She is another extreme case of imprinting. She fell subject to the Harry Potter syndrome, where people thought that it would be great to have a pet owl. And so she was taken out of the nest as a very young owl and imprinted. See how docile she is. I mean, you know, what owl can you do that to? And we didn't train her to do that. She came fully prepared for that, which is good for us for education, but I'd rather release the bird into the wild. So it gives us the opportunity to really show people why we have all these birds, is to show people how great they are, how important they are to the environment, and how, you know, protecting property like you guys in the Land Trust are doing and Audubon is doing is really essential to biological diversity and to these creatures that unfortunately need our help because we're sometimes doing harm that we shouldn't be.
How healthy are the owl population?
Healthy. The question is, how healthy is the owl population? These guys are barred owls, very, very common. Very common. Great horned owls, very, very common. Screech owls, not quite as common, but common. And those are the top 3 owls that we'll have. Sometimes in the winter, well, actually up here you may have breeding saw-whet owls up here. Those are really the four, long-eared, short-eared, maybe sometimes, but yes?
Crows bother when they find their nest?
Yeah. Crows will bother this is a predator, and any bird of prey, a hawk, an owl, the crows will bother. And if you hear a ruckus of crows during the day and all of a sudden you see this mob of crows going into the woods, it's probably because they either found a hawk or an owl. It doesn't have to just be an owl, it could be a hawk. But that's a good way to find owls. If you hear the crows ruckusing, find out what they're ruckusing about. And often you can either see a hawk or an owl. It's called mobbing. And so they're trying to get rid of the owl because it's a predator. They don't want the predator around their nest. They don't want the predators to take babies out of their nest. They don't want to feel in danger. So they gang up together. It's actually pretty interesting. You can see them up in the air. They'll gang up together and they'll just pester that bird as it's flying and try to get it out of there. And usually the birds, particularly red-tailed hawks, are pretty patient. They're flying, they get hammered by these birds, and it doesn't look like it's bothering them, you know, because it probably doesn't do too much to them. But one time I saw a red-tailed hawk being hammered by crows and other little birds, and this red-tailed hawk got mad and grabbed, I watched it in the air, grabbed one of these birds, squeezed it, and then all you see is this flock of blackbirds and this red-tailed hawk, and this one bird's kind of just floating to the ground. It had enough, and it said, "Okay." And that's the first and only time I've seen it. Left foot. Okay. Thanks, you good spotters there. All right, we've got time for a few other questions. I know we're getting late, but yeah.
So if you use like decon or a gopher killer and an owl will eat, is there enough poison in there to harm the owl?
Yeah, it's really a problem. And the question is, rodenticides and pesticides and things, it's a problem. And you have to really look. Personally, I don't like to use that stuff at all for that reason. But it gets to a point where sometimes the rodent problem is so bad you have to do something. And there are rodenticides out there that are non-residual, so you have to look. You have to really read those labels. The anticoagulants are bad because they do affect the residual, not just owls or hawks, but any kind of predator that's going to eat those mice or those rodents. So you have to look. I'm not going to recommend a particular product because I don't feel comfortable doing it, but if you look out there, you'll pay attention to ones and do some research, ones that say that they're non-residual. Non-residual. And they're out there. You have to kind of trust what the manufacturer is saying. If you don't have to use the stuff, don't use it, because it is a problem. Some of that stuff is a big problem. 4. How many claws? 4. And owls actually can actually good question. Usually it's 3 and 1. When birds are perching, 3 in the front, 1 in the back. Owls have a reciprocal, what we call a reciprocal thumb. And so they can move that thumb in front so that they have 2 and whatever. 2 and 2, 2 up and 2 below. And so they have more surface area to catch their prey instead of the 3 and 1, so they can move it around. Good question. What else? Any other questions? All right. Thanks so much for having me here. I'll be around if you have other questions.
The problem is the battery.
Just a couple of minutes.
Is out, but if you plug it in.
Scott, when you're ready, maybe you can make your way over here. We do have some raffles that we can do right now. We have the, which one are we going to do first?
Owl House.
The Owl House and the Buck. All right, here we go. Okay. Colleen? Okay, congratulations. You can pick it up if you'd like. Keep going. Very nice. And we have the native blueberry bush. Oh, the number. This is one without a name. Okay, 387-883. Anybody? Going once?
That'll take a while.
It was probably me. I put them all in there.
387-883?
If you find another one in there with a name on it that matches, then it was mine. So I put both
Oh, you put both sides in there?
Yeah, I got distracted.
Okay, why don't we try another one? Do you want to look through them?
Yeah. Let's give it a few minutes.
Okay. All right. We'll definitely give it a few minutes. At this point, I just want to let you know about a few events that are coming up. This Sunday, June 10th at 1 p.m., the Hartland Historical Society and the Town of Hartland are co-sponsoring the Camp Ellis Merit Day, including the dedication of the newly restored Nellie B. West building. It's a big thing in Hartland, and everybody should try and make it. As far as the Land Trust goes, our next event is in September, and we have an event on coyotes by Paul Rager. And then in November, a speaker on wild turkeys, Michael Dragonis. So keep those marked on your calendar. Have we figured out the raffle? Okay, Deb Kostolnik is the owner of 387-883. Nice going, Deb. Nice blueberry bush. That's fine. We thought it was you. Okay, we have a couple of certificates of appreciation. And we'd like to thank Scott for his presentation. It was totally entertaining. And we'd like you to have your certificate. We think our partnership in protecting land ensures bird populations will thrive forever in Hartland. Thank you very much. I'd just like to say we're a growing and maturing organization and appreciate your support in our goals. As Neil said, feel free to become a member or renew your membership, and we would be delighted with offers of your skills to help us assist in any of our programs. Thanks for coming, and enjoy the wonders of Hartland art exhibit and refreshments as well. Thank you.
see if we can get her to plug in that computer again, rerun that thing she's had going up on front with the lights on.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Just one more minute. I'm sorry, we have 2 more certificates of appreciation that I overlooked. Many of you have watched our GCTV events on Channel 14 and online, and we want to give thanks to Neil Mueller and Howell Bordovich, our dedicated Hartland filming experts, make this possible. In recognition of your work and time and dedication, we would like to present you with certificates of appreciation and our sincere thanks to both of you. Thank you very much.
That is awesome.
Please come up.
We do.
Let's go together.
Go with them, go with them.
Yeah.
I just actually, yesterday, just for a little while, I started to find a place and
No.